The story begins with breathtaking yet terrifying views of Monument Valley. Its enormous cliffs and steep, flat-topped mountains may look beautiful, but they are also extremely dangerous. 5 climbers are attempting to scale one of these massive formations. 3 of them belong to the same family. The father, Royce, is an experienced mountaineer who is climbing alongside his daughter, Annie, and son, Peter. The other 2 climbers are part of their group, but they are far less experienced. Unfortunately, this lack of experience will soon become the most tragic part of the expedition. Under the scorching sun, all 5 climbers slowly make their way up the mountain. 2 climbers positioned above Royce and his children suddenly lose their footing. They slip on the unstable rock and begin falling thousands of feet. The terrifying part is that all 5 climbers are connected by a single rope. As the 2 climbers fall, their combined weight violently pulls everyone else away from the mountain. Within seconds, all 5 are left hanging in midair, supported only by a single rope attached to a small anchor near the top. But the anchor and rope were never designed to carry the weight of 5 people. Strong winds continue to shake them while the immense pressure gradually weakens the rope. The 2 climbers who fell are now hanging below the others, putting even more strain on the system. Suddenly, their section of the rope snaps. They disappear into the deep ravine below. Now, only Royce, Peter, and Annie remain suspended from the rope. However, their danger is far from over. Even with the weight reduced, the rope continues slipping from the anchor. The metal hook is also beginning to pull away from the rock. Royce immediately realizes that unless they reduce the weight again, the anchor will fail and all 3 of them will fall. He desperately tells Annie to place a climbing clamp into a nearby crack in the rock. If she can secure it properly, it might take some pressure off the anchor. Annie struggles with all her strength, but the crack is just beyond her reach. As Royce hangs below them and Peter remains above him, Royce realizes there is only one way to save his children. He looks at Peter with tears in his eyes and tells him to take out his knife. Then he asks his son to cut his rope. Peter and Annie are horrified. Annie desperately begs Peter not to do it.
Just cut the rope! Doesn't matter about me, just cut it!
Peter's entire body trembles as he struggles to accept what his father is asking him to do. He knows that cutting the rope means his father will fall to his death. But Royce insists that there is no other way to save them. With tears streaming down his face, Peter finally makes the heartbreaking decision. He cuts the rope. Royce falls into the enormous ravine below, sacrificing himself so his children can survive. 3 years later, the tragedy still haunts Peter. The guilt surrounding his father's death has completely changed his life. He abandons mountain climbing and instead becomes a photographer for National Geographic. He deliberately keeps himself away from the mountains that remind him of his past, but fate soon brings him back. While working on a documentary, Peter learns that a major expedition is preparing to climb K2, one of the highest and most dangerous mountains on Earth. What shocks him even more is discovering that his sister Annie is part of the expedition. Annie has become a highly respected climber and is now pursuing the dreams their father never got to complete. Peter travels to the base camp to meet her. After years apart, the siblings finally come face to face. Instead of a warm reunion, there is only silence and unresolved resentment. Annie still blames Peter for their father's death. Peter discovers that Annie is part of a 5-person team planning to reach the summit by Tuesday. The expedition is being led and financed by Elliot Warren, a wealthy businessman who recently purchased an airline company. Elliot has planned an extravagant stunt. He wants his company's first aircraft to fly over K2 at the exact moment he reaches the summit. He believes the spectacle will demonstrate his influence and success to the world. The night before the expedition begins, Elliot organizes a huge celebration. Everyone is enjoying themselves when a serious-looking climber named Vic suddenly arrives. Vic is an extremely experienced mountaineer who has already climbed K2 and understands how unpredictable the mountain can be. He approaches Elliot and asks what he plans to do if the weather suddenly changes. Confident in his wealth and preparations, Elliot says he has hired the best weather expert available. He claims there is no indication of dangerous conditions for the next 2 months. Vic warns him not to underestimate the mountain. He reminds Elliot that mountain weather can change without warning and that no amount of money can control it. But Elliot simply laughs off the warning. Vic leaves the party, shaves his beard, and quietly begins climbing toward K2 alone in the darkness. The following day, Elliot's 5-member team starts their own ascent. They climb higher with confidence and excitement. When they reach around 26,000 feet, where the air becomes dangerously thin, they receive an urgent radio warning from base camp. A powerful storm is rapidly approaching their location. Tom, the experienced team leader, immediately recognizes the danger and orders everyone to turn back, but Elliot refuses. His main concern is his airline's publicity and the attention he will receive from completing the climb. He argues that they are only about an hour away from their first destination and insists that the storm could change direction. Tom and Annie understand how dangerous the situation has become. However, Elliot's pressure and determination eventually convince the team to continue. Back at base camp, Peter notices that the climbers are not coming down despite the warning. His anxiety grows as memories of his father's death return. He contacts Tom again and urgently warns him that a massive storm is approaching from the south. Peter begs them to turn around before it is too late, but Elliot once again manages manages to persuade Tom to keep moving. From below, Peter watches helplessly through his binoculars as Annie continues deeper into danger. He has already lost his father, and he refuses to lose his sister as well. High above them, the mountain suddenly reveals its true power. A violent blizzard strikes without warning. The 5 climbers struggle through heavy snowfall, freezing temperatures, and almost zero visibility. Suddenly, the snow beneath Annie gives way. She plunges into a deep crevice between 2 sections of rock. Because everyone is connected by the same rope, her fall pulls the others downward. Fortunately, Annie's rope catches against a sharp section of rock before she reaches the bottom. The rope suddenly snaps. Annie survives the fall but becomes trapped inside the deep ravine. The remaining climbers are separated as the storm continues raging around them. Then, without warning, an enormous avalanche crashes down the mountain. The wave of snow races toward the team like a wall of destruction. 2 more members are caught in the avalanche and perish. Only Annie, Elliot, and Tom remain alive inside the ravine. Massive amounts of snow bury the area, trapping all 3 beneath the surface. They are now completely cut off from the outside world. The rescue team repeatedly tries contacting them through the radio, but there is no response. Annie remembers that she knows Morse code. Fortunately, Peter understands it as well. Using a small piece of metal and a stone, Annie begins sending Morse signals from beneath the snow. The equipment at base camp eventually detects the signals. Peter is relieved to discover that his sister is still alive, but they are running out of time. Experts estimate that the trapped climbers may have less than 36 hours to survive at such an extreme altitude and temperature. They are suffering from severe oxygen deprivation and have limited medical supplies. The biggest challenge is locating them precisely beneath the enormous layer of ice. Even if their position is found, removing the massive amount of snow and ice surrounding them seems almost impossible. Peter decides to go up the mountain himself. He knows the mission could cost him his life, but he refuses to abandon his sister. To prepare for the rescue, he approaches the military and requests powerful explosives capable of breaking through the ice. However, these explosives are extremely unstable and can detonate from a strong impact or exposure to direct sunlight. Elliot's company offers a large financial reward to anyone willing to accompany Peter on the dangerous rescue mission. The promise of money attracts several people, and a rescue team is assembled. Before they leave, Peter receives one important recommendation. Someone suggests bringing Vic along. Vic is the same experienced climber who warned Elliot about the dangerous weather before the expedition. Vic also carries a painful history connected to K2. 4 years earlier, his wife, a highly experienced mountain guide, disappeared during a devastating storm on the same mountain. Desperate to find her, Vic climbed into the storm himself. Although he never recovered her body, he managed to rescue 3 other people. During that expedition, several of his toes suffered severe frostbite. Even years later, Vic continues searching the dangerous valleys for any remaining trace of his wife. Peter and the rescue team travel by helicopter to meet Vic. At first, Vic refuses to join them. He knows that climbing K2 under the current conditions could be nothing more than a suicide mission. But Peter reminds him that Vic once climbed Everest alongside his father, Royce. The memory brings back old emotions. After reconsidering, Vic finally agrees to help. He takes command of the rescue operation and makes one thing clear. This is not a record-breaking expedition. It is a rescue mission, and every decision will be made with the survival of the trapped climbers as the top priority. Meanwhile, deep beneath the ice, the condition of Annie, Elliot, and Tom continues to deteriorate. The freezing temperatures are becoming unbearable. Their bodies are struggling to cope with the extreme cold and lack of oxygen. Tom's breathing becomes increasingly difficult as his lungs begin to fail. He desperately needs the medicine he carries to keep himself alive. Elliot's selfish nature becomes even more obvious in the cave. Even though Tom desperately needs medicine to survive, Elliot refuses to share any of his supply. He secretly hopes Tom will die so that he can use the remaining medicine himself and extend his own chances of survival. Annie cannot accept this cruelty. Without Elliot knowing, she gives Tom part of her own medicine. When Elliot discovers what she has done, he becomes furious and starts verbally attacking Annie. Meanwhile, Peter and Vic continue climbing toward the trapped survivors. They move through the dangerous mountain carrying unstable nitroglycerin explosives. Every step puts their lives at risk. The mountain seems determined to stop them. During the journey, one of the explosives begins leaking. As the first rays of sunlight reach it, the unstable material suddenly detonates. A massive blast shakes the mountain. 2 members of the rescue team are killed instantly. The explosion also loosens a huge layer of old snow. As Vic searches through the area, he suddenly notices something unusual beneath the snow. He moves closer and discovers a human hand. When he uncovers the body, he is completely devastated. It is his wife, the woman he has been searching for during the past 4 years. Her body has remained preserved beneath the snow. Vic quietly removes her wedding ring and keeps it inside his locket as a final reminder of her. Soon afterward, Peter discovers a small medical container nearby. Inside, it is evidence that reveals a terrible secret from the past. 4 years earlier, when Vic's wife became trapped during the storm, Elliot had been with her. Instead of helping her, Elliot had taken her supply of dexamethasone to protect himself. He then abandoned her to survive alone. Vic finally realizes that Elliot was responsible for his wife's death. A deep anger takes over him. He immediately heads toward the cave where Elliot and the others are trapped. By nightfall, Annie's condition has become extremely serious. She manages to contact Peter through the radio. Weak and exhausted, she tells him to turn back because she believes none of them will survive until morning. Peter tries to reassure her, but he struggles to control his emotions. Inside the cave, Elliot reveals just how far he is willing to go to survive. While Annie is unconscious, he secretly approaches Tom. He injects air into Tom's bloodstream, causing a fatal reaction. Tom dies almost instantly. When Annie wakes up, she finds Tom motionless. She notices the empty syringe nearby and immediately realizes what Elliot has done. She understands that he murdered Tom simply to protect his own supply of medicine. Suddenly, snow begins falling from the ceiling of the cave. Then, a faint light appears above them. Peter and Vic have finally reached their location. They carefully position their final explosive and detonate it. The blast opens a path into the buried cave. Peter quickly climbs down to reach Annie. Annie prepares to help pull him back up using the rope. At that moment, Vic comes face to face with Elliot. Vic has every reason to kill him. However, despite everything Elliot has done, Vic refuses to abandon his principles. Instead, he secures Elliot to the rescue rope as well. But then, disaster strikes again. The unstable ground beneath them suddenly begins collapsing. The situation becomes frighteningly similar to the accident that killed Royce years earlier. Peter is holding onto the rock above while Annie, Vic, and Elliot are suspended below him on the same rope. The fragile ground continues breaking apart. The anchor begins pulling loose under their combined weight. Vic immediately understands what is happening. If he does nothing, Peter and Annie will be dragged into the abyss as well. He looks toward Peter. There is an unusual calmness in his eyes. Vic reaches into his pocket and pulls out a knife. Peter immediately realizes what he is planning. He desperately shouts for Vic to stop, but Vic simply smiles. He makes the same heartbreaking sacrifice that Royce once made. With one final motion, Vic cuts the rope. Vic and Elliot plunge together into the darkness below. Their sacrifice saves Peter and Annie. Vic finally gets justice for his wife, while also giving the two siblings a chance to survive. As morning arrives, the first rays of sunlight reach the mountain. Peter successfully brings Annie back to the base camp. The hatred that once existed between the siblings is gone. Annie looks at her brother with love and respect. She embraces Peter and finally forgives him for what happened years earlier. She tells him that if their father were alive, he would be incredibly proud of his courage. Peter later builds a stone memorial honoring everyone who lost their lives during the dangerous rescue mission. With that final tribute, this incredible story comes to an end.